Today we're making Lebanese Mujaddara. Mujaddara is little known outside the Middle East, and the Lebanese version even less so. This is generally due to this being more of a home-cooked meal that isn't really served in restaurants. The first recorded recipe for this mujaddara appears in the oldest surviving Arabic cookbook, the name of which is on the screen now because I can't say that. But it does translate roughly to Book of Dishes, written by a man from ancient Baghdad. And this recipe contained rice, lentils, and meat, and was served during celebrations. The recipe later became adapted to be made without meat, however, as a dish more for the poor in Old Lebanon. There are two different types of mujaddara. There is the Pilaf-Style version, where the grains of rice or bulgur wheat are noticeably separate from the lentils, and the lentils are still whole. And then there is a pureed version, which has more of a dip-like consistency. In most Levantine countries, mujaddara usually refers to this dish, which is the pilaf version, whereas in Lebanon, most people think of it as the pureed version. Both of these dishes are usually served at room temperature, and in Lebanon, it's not uncommon to see a dish of mujaddara sitting on the table, covered with a kitchen towel and waiting to be eaten for dinner. It's a great lunch too, served with some homemade pita chips, pickles, and fresh tomatoes. It's low on effort but big on flavour. So today I'll show you how to make both the Lebanese pureed mujaddara and the more usual Levantine pilaf style mujaddara, but using bulgur wheat instead of rice, making this one mujaddara hamra instead. The full ingredients and recipes are down in the description below. So first, the Lebanese version. Forewarning for this one, you will need some way to blend this, such as an immersion blender, but you could also use a big top feed blender or a food mill. So for this, we'll need 2 white onions, 100 grams of brown lentils, 30 grams of white long grain rice, olive oil, toasted cumin, salt and black pepper. Toasting the cumin completely transforms this normal spice into something utterly different. And although it sounds silly, cumin takes on a very toasty flavour, much better than a lot of other spices. As this is the only spice we're using here, I would highly recommend toasting your cumin. All you need to do for this is to heat up your cumin seeds in a dry frying pan or the oven for a few minutes until they've darkened by a few shades and are starting to pop. Then just grind them up and there you go, toasted ground cumin. For the method, first we need to peel and halve the white onions, then finely slice them and set these aside. Now get a pot over medium heat and add 1 tablespoon of olive oil and wait around 20 seconds for the oil to heat up, and then add the sliced onions. Sprinkle with some salt and fry for 30 to 40 minutes until the onions are a deep, rich brown colour, like this. Along the way to full caramelization, you'll encounter a few stages, and people always tend to stop too early at the beginning stages when it comes to caramelized onions. But for these dishes, you want to take them as far as you can. So the first stage is when they're technically cooked, but they aren't caramelized. They'll be soft and a light golden colour, but they'll still have a lot of volume, and they'll be fairly separate. Stage 2 is when they haven't changed colour that much from stage 1, but they've noticeably reduced in volume and are softer than before. Additionally, you may also notice that the onions have released the oil that you originally put in the pan, and they're starting to fry in that oil again. Stage 3 is when they've reached a darker shade, beginning to become a light brown, and they're becoming jammy and are sticking together into a fairly large mass. This is the beginning of caramelized onions, but there's still a lot more to go. Stage 4 is the last stage, and this is full caramelization, but this is more of a spectrum rather than a single point. The main difference between stage 3 to stage 4 is colour. They'll progressively get more brown and toasty coloured, and for this dish we want to take them really far, to a nice deep brown colour, to really bring that caramelized flavour to the mujaddara. Now add the brown lentils to the pot, along with a hefty pinch of salt, a good few cracks of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of ground toasted cumin seeds. Fry these together for a couple of minutes until things start to smell fragrant, then add 650 ml of water and bring everything to a simmer, and leave it simmering for 45 minutes or until the lentils easily squish between your fingers. Then blend it all together into a puree and then add the rice. Put the lid back on and cook on low heat for around 20 minutes or until the rice is cooked through. Now just take it off the heat, transfer it to a serving bowl and cover it with some cling film, pressing the cling film down onto the top of the mujaddara so that it doesn't form a film. And then just leave this to cool down until it reaches room temperature. I said that this dish goes best with some homemade pita chips and pickles, so now let's make those. They're both surprisingly simple to make. If you're making your own pickles, this needs to be done at least a day in advance, but preferably a few days so that the pickles can really pick up some nice flavour and colouring. Obviously, you can totally just buy some pickles from the store, but one of my favourite pickles are these Lebanese pickles called Lift. But I'm not sure I'm saying that right, so sorry to any of the Lebanese viewers out there. You can't really get these from Western supermarkets. These are pickled turnips, and the pink colouring is coming from some beetroot that's in the jar with it as well. They don't absorb much of the vinegar flavour compared to something with a lot of water, such as a cucumber, so they're a bit more mild on the vinegar flavour, but they have a lovely texture and flavour that I don't think I've ever had from any other pickle, and it goes perfectly with this, and they're super easy to make. All you need to do is combine equal parts water and vinegar with 1 tablespoon of salt per 500 ml of liquid, as well as an optional amount of sugar, around 1 to 2 teaspoons per 500 ml as well. You may need to heat this up a little bit on the hob or in the microwave to get everything to dissolve, but it shouldn't really take much. Now, this is your universal pickling brine. Combine it with anything: turnips, bay leaves, and beets to make our Lebanese lift pickles, cucumbers, garlic, and dill to make traditional dill pickles, or maybe some red onions and peppercorns for some pink pickled onions. The variation really is endless, and it's all up to you. Just make sure to keep your pickles in the fridge and use them within 1 to 2 months. For the homemade pita chips, it's just the standard deep frying scenario. I'm using a wok to deep fry with because you need a lot less oil to deep fry more food, so it's conservative on the oil. So to do this, cut up your pita bread into, chip shapes and separate the layers of pita so that each chip is a single layer. Now heat up your deep frying oil to 180 degrees Celsius and drop in your pita chips for a few minutes, just until they start to turn a lovely golden brown colour. Don't go on time here, just go on sight. They will continue to brown a little when you take them out, so make sure to take them out just under where you really want them. Transfer these to a serving bowl and immediately sprinkle with some salt and give them a gentle toss to coat them all, and then set aside for eating with the mujaddara. These are really best made just before you plan to eat them. Now for the Pilaf style version. For this one, the ratio of lentils to grains is 1 to 1, unlike the pureed version where it's more like 3 to 1. So, ingredients wise, there's only 2 differences. Instead of rice, we're using 100 grams of coarse grain bulgur wheat, and instead of white onions, traditionally they use red onions. However, I'm going to be using white onions again, as that's all I really have and it doesn't make too much of a difference. I specify coarse grain bulgur wheat because it isn't often seen in Western supermarkets, so it may be hard to source. I bought mine from the Axoy brand on Amazon, link in the description. The coarse grains are important for this, as the usual stuff from the supermarkets is just too fine, and it'll be less like a pilaf and it'll be more like a couscous with lentils. Still nice, but not really what we're going for here. This version of mujaddara is often served with just a simple salad and a side of yogurt, so no deep frying or blender needed for this one. So for the method, you'll want to dice your onions instead of slicing them, caramelize the onions the same way as before, and then add the lentils, extra salt, black pepper and toasted cumin before frying for another couple of minutes. Now is where the methods deviate slightly. Add 550 ml of water and then bring everything to a simmer for 30 minutes until the lentils are almost cooked, but you still want them quite al dente at this point as they're going to have another 15 minutes. Now add the bulgur wheat, give everything a stir and simmer for another 15 minutes, at which point the bulgur wheat should be cooked and the water should all be soaked up. Now just take it off the heat and enjoy along with a simple salad and a dollop of yogurt. This is the first video on our YouTube channel, so if you could give this video a like if you enjoyed it, that would be great. We also have a website which we'll link to down in the description, where you'll find our one-of-a-kind recipe boxes as well as some other content such as our blog posts. We hope you liked this video and we hope to see you in the next one.